Assalamu alaikum, good evening, and welcome to tonight's episode of Talking Points. I'm your host, Syed Niaz Ahmed. With us in our studios is a very eminent journalist. He has been on our show before, and we have benefited from his knowledge and his writings and his experience. Welcome to the show, Mr. Syed Badrul Ahsan.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for coming along, despite the bad weather and the bad forecast.
You might be surprised. This kind of weather happens to be the kind of weather I like.
Oh, great. Oh, great.
Great. If it doesn't sound very abnormal.
Well, it doesn't sound abnormal at all. This is normal for these days in London.
Yes.
We are going to talk about this year, the year 2024. According to Chinese calendar, this is the year of dragon, but according to pressmen and the media, this is the year of elections. Yes. Some 40 countries are going to elect their representatives this year. This morning I learned that the 41st is going to be Namibia because the president had died today. First it was on 7th of January, it was Bangladesh, then came Taiwan, and then we have a long list of elections, see. But the most interesting thing is that on top of the list is the Security Council of United Nations is also going to elect its non-permanent members. That's some good news. 2024 is notable for the large number of elections with 7 of the world's 10 most populous nations that will be holding elections. That includes Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and some Far East nations. More than 2 billion persons will be casting their vote in 50 countries, and they are expected to choose the rulers, their representatives for the next 4 or 5 years as the rules exist in their own countries. How do you see this wonderful year?
Yes, as you pointed out, it's going to be a very exciting year. It has already started. We have had elections in Bangladesh on the 7th of January, as you correctly pointed out. And a few days from now, on the 8th of this month, there's going to be an election in Pakistan, which is again riddled with controversy because the former Prime Minister, Imran Khan, has been convicted in a number of cases, and his party has not been deregistered, but it's not being allowed to campaign out in the open. His party has not been given its symbol. They wanted the cricket bat as their symbol. The Election Commission decided against it. But the other two forces, traditional Pakistani political parties, the Muslim League and the Pakistan People's Party, they are out in the field. Now, one can imagine what would have happened if the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf (PTI) were in the field. It would have been a different ball game altogether. So, but the rather disturbing fact about Pakistan's elections of late has been the role of the army. Now, in countries where we have democracy or where we would like to have democracy, it's generally understood that the military will be under the authority, will operate under the authority of the elected civilian government. In Pakistan, it has always been the other way around. Now, the army is obviously supervising the election. In 2018, the army removed Nawaz Sharif, put him in jail, and in 2022, and they sort of installed Imran Khan as the Prime Minister, and he was in the National Assembly. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari always referred to him as the selected Prime Minister. A time came when the army again dumped Imran Khan. So, and Imran Khan, before he was tried and placed under arrest and convicted, whereas earlier the Pakistan People's Party and other people opposed to him described him as the selected Prime Minister, he in turn talked of the government of Shehbaz Sharif, and we describe Shehbaz Sharif as an imported Prime Minister. So it's it's a very curious situation in Pakistan. So there will be elections, but the feeling in Pakistan is that it's again a program, it's again a strategy by the army to bring back Nawaz Sharif. Nawaz Sharif is a rather tame figure now. In Pakistan, every politician is tame. Nobody talks against the army. Nobody wants the army not to interfere into politics. The one person who wanted the army out is now in jail, Imran Khan. So that is Pakistan. And of course, in May again, we have an election coming up in India. The chances are that Narendra Modi's BJP will win again. He's already been, the BJP has already been in
power. They're going to elect 543 members of Rajya Sabha.
Yes, Rajya Sabha. And I think, I mean, there's hardly any chance that he will be, the BJP will be beaten in the election, because the opposition is not in a state to remove him. The Congress is a mere shadow of his former self. And the Congress, even in alliance with other opposition political parties, is not actually equipped to remove the BJP government. And in fact, in these last few weeks, especially, the BJP has been garnering political support. And I'm quite surprised when I meet people. There used to be a time when they appear to be very secular in their conversation, pro-Congress, if you like. But of late, they like to explain away the BJP idea of Hindutva. And of course, you know it very well. The recent inauguration of the Ram Lalla or Ram Mandir on the spot where the Babri Masjid used to be. These are that's there. And two other elections as an observer I'm looking forward to is the British election, which will take place
hopefully
at some point, and whether the Keir Starmer's Labour is able to overcome Mr. Rishi Sunak's Conservative Party. And additionally, there's the question of American elections, and that is a bit worrying. Will Donald Trump come back? Will Biden hold on? What happens to American politics?
We have got two one-term presidents.
Two one-term, yes.
Fighting each other for their second term.
That's because Nikki Haley has been making a very valid point. These are two aged men. By now, if you and I look at the record of past American elections, the candidates were younger, relatively younger. And by the age of 80 or 77, Trump is 77, Biden is 80, they had retired. They should have retired.
Well, Obama retired at 55.
55, at 55. Richard Nixon was elected at 55. And I recall when Nixon was elected in 1968, there was a report in Time magazine saying that the oldest American president in history at that point of time was General Eisenhower. He was retiring at the age of 69, and he was referred to as the oldest president. Now, how do you describe these two men? and there are other candidates who are not getting a chance, because people had thought that Biden would step aside after the first term and make way for Vice President Kamala Harris, perhaps for Kamala Harris. He's not doing that. And the American system is a peculiar system. Opinion polls say that if Nikki Haley is the candidate of the Republicans, she will beat Biden by a good number, by a long margin, but she will not be the candidate. Donald Trump will be there. And if Donald Trump is elected president, if he's convicted by that time, he has the power to pardon himself. So what kind of a situation, I mean, what kind of a political system do you have in the US?
If you elect a convicted person, and they will use their prerogative.
Let's say Donald Trump is elected, but on the day of the inauguration, he's still in jail. Right. So how do you bring him out? So,
it sounds like the PTI chairman being in jail, and his party is...
The PTI, it's a very peculiar... The PTI chief, Imran Khan, is not being tried in an open court. He's being tried within the precincts of the jail. See, and I mean, the cases against, especially the last one, his marriage to Bushra Bibi, in that question. I mean, the state is... That should be a subject for Islamic scholars. But here the state is interfering. State is trying to tell Pakistanis that the marriage was invalid. In other words, the marriage doesn't stand. why should the state why should the state invade people's bedrooms? You know? So that is one peculiarity of Pakistan's politics. Right?
This is because if you can't beat them on valid grounds, then it's they will pick up something which is completely diabolical and try to make them look
yes.
very odd. Thank you very much, viewers. We will be back again on this very interesting topic of the election year 2024. Okay, thank you very much. Don't go away. We'll be back soon. Welcome back. Just before the break, we were talking about the elections in America, elections in Pakistan, and let's take a step back and we go back home to Bangladesh, and the elections were held on 7th of January, and the ruling Awami League won 223 seats, and there were some 60-odd independent candidates, and Jatiya Party, the former opposition party, appointed opposition party, won this time 11 seats. And now Mr. G.M. Qadir has been recognized as the leader of the opposition. It's a bit, the calculation and the figures are a bit strange, because a party with 233 seats recognizes a party that has got only 11 members in the parliament as the opposition party, while 60 other candidates remain as independent. How do you see this?
Yeah, that's a very, very tricky situation because here you have the ruling party, which has 223 seats, and the Jatiya Party has 11 seats. Between them, you have 62 independent lawmakers, parliamentarians. Now, are we to suppose that Mr. G.M. Qadir, being the leader of the opposition, will also be the leader of those 62 candidates who have been elected independently? See, but there's most of those 62 independent candidates,
the former
Awami Leaguers, and there's a very good chance that they will go back to the Awami League. So if they go back to the Awami League, 223 plus 62, right? So, and then you have 11, just 11 seats, which Mr. G.M. Qadir of the Jatiya Party will lead. So I think there should be a clarification, because if with 11 seats, I recall,
I guess 286 or something.
286. So I mean, that means there will not be an effective opposition. However, if these 62 candidates, they decide to form a bloc among themselves, that could be a good point to look at, because that will give the country a semblance of an image of a ruling party, and at the other end you have 62 independents plus the 11 Jatiya Party members plus those 3 or 4 other MPs who have been elected from different areas. For example, Mr. Rashid Khan Menon, again, he was elected with the boat symbol, and then we have General Ibrahim elected from his constituency in Chittor.
Has he been elected for the first time?
It's the first time.
He has been on the sidelines for a long time.
So he's been elected. So this is one problem that we will have, but with assuming that the 62 independent lawmakers, they link up with the Awami League, or they vote with the Awami League, they support the Awami League's programs, that is of course their parliamentary right. So to what extent will these 11 MPs led by Mr. G.M. Qadir have any voice in Parliament? How will they influence the government? So having said that, I would say that this Parliament, this unprecedented number of 62 MPs, they don't hold the balance of power, because power belongs to the Awami League, but they can play a very vital role in raising the issues, the issues of great public concern in Parliament. Additionally, I would expect these members, lawmakers of the Awami League itself, they should, I mean, Parliament should be a vibrant enterprise, as The late US President once said, government should be a throbbing, thriving experience. So our parliament, elected on the 7th of January, can become that throbbing, thriving experience.
They're very much throbbing.
Yes,
they throb.
Yeah, but not thumping the table, you see. So I think questions pertaining to public issues should be there. And I think our MPs should make it a point, like the MPs in the West, for example, in Britain, where they should keep time, a fixed time over the weekend, to go to their constituencies, meet their voters, understand their problems, and come back and raise questions in Parliament. Additionally, I think we have parliamentary standing committees, like we have select committees here. So in Bangladesh, we have parliamentary standing committees. Those standing committees should be more vocal, more active.
And meeting regularly.
Meeting regularly. And if there are, let's say, if there are problems in every country, we have problems, we will have problems. So assuming that a particular ministry, there are reports about a particular ministry, a newspaper on corruption, on any other, based on any other factors.
Yeah, like not getting good service.
No, so the standing committee should be empowered to call the minister and grill him. Grill him. And one other thing that could be considered by the government is to have these questions, these examinations or interrogations or grilling of these ministers by the standing committees, like you have in this country, in a telecast on television.
It should be live,
so that the public, and because that will not only help citizens to understand what actually is going on, that will also give citizens a perspective on policies, and also on the radio. In the villages, not all of our villages have television, but they can listen to radio. Through the radio, they can understand the business of government.
On the social media, because everybody has access to Facebook and all that.
And of course, the media has a responsibility to cover everything that goes on. I mean, we want a media which is not just praising the government or the opposition or any particular minister, but be ready to ask pointed questions.
Yes. Well, we will talk about the media, but later about Bangladesh media and media in general. But how is, there were some hiccups in the economy just at the start, like the international market is not suitable because the prices are going up. Even we have a big problem with onion and potatoes, and I can't understand. Onions can make us cry, but it seems that this is literally. It seems it's an economic cry. Every year we seem to suffer from that. Just before the Ramadan, we talk about chilies. We talk about onion, we talk about potato, we talk about spices. And this is an ongoing process. Why can't we think of these things in advance, 6 months in advance? Let's have this stock.
I think...
and onions can be grown in the backyard.
Exactly. See?
You don't need tropical...
you don't need to import them. No, I think the entire question is one of governance. Because now, as you pointed out, Ramadan is on its way. Now, and the government has appealed to traders not to raise prices. Now, you don't appeal to traders.
Who are the traders?
You take action. You formulate policies in such a way that no trader, no business, or indeed no citizen will be able to he'll think twice before violating the law. But in Ramadan, what do we see? Prices go up. And in Bangladesh, it has always been the case that whenever prices go up, they stay up. They never come down. So in other countries, we have during religious occasions, Christmas, New Year, the puja season, we have these sales in markets, different markets. You have sales where prices go down. People can buy items that they would prefer for themselves. But in our country, there's nothing called sales. Prices go up. So I think here the government should formulate a policy, a policy which will be of a kind that will stop traders or anybody else who is attempting to indulge in such corruption, because raising prices is also corruption. So you have to, one has to be very careful, and the law must be applied. Government or governance is not done by appeals to people. It's done by administrative experience. So I think that should be, I mean, that kind of experience should come in, that kind of ability should be there. And ministers, they certainly have their civil servants around them. They should be able to exercise their fiat without any impediment. And I mean, and it should be anybody who is indulging in, like, raising price of onions, potatoes, tomatoes. These are basic things. And if citizens are not able to buy these basic things, if you go to a village market and then you see a peasant, he's moving around the whole thing with an empty bag, he doesn't know what to buy because he doesn't have very much money in his pocket. Now, that is where the government should focus, the alleviation of poverty, allow people or make it possible for people at the grassroots, the poor, because our country is progressing economically, that's understandable, we agree, but then at the same time, see, the divide, there's a wedge between...
We need to take a break.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay, we'll come back later. So.
Well, we're talking about onions, garlic, and other spices, and you would be excused to understand or think that this is a cooking show. We'll be back soon, and we'll talk about economy. We're not talking about cooking. See you after this very short break. Thank you. Don't go away. Welcome back. Just before the break, and all over today, we are talking about democracy and elections. See, they say that there is some hope that people are still voting, people are trying to change the form of rulers and the rulers themselves. But 10th elections in 2024 could shape the world and the future of democracy, particularly the very populous nations like India, Pakistan and Bangladesh. Yes, sir. We were talking about there is some hope that people are still voting for the candidates, the people they like, and people believe in the system that is known as democracy. The people's opinion are important. Not they are imposed from the top, but people elect the people to go to the top.
I remember a quotation, Vox Populi, Vox Dei. Right. The voice of the people is the voice of God. So, yes, we in these difficult times, we have questions about democracy. Many of us complain that democracy is a slow process, that it's not giving us the kind of results that we would like to. But then at the end of the day, democracy is the one weapon, is the one instrument through which we can take societies forward. Mm-hmm. We have experienced in different countries authoritarian regimes, dictatorial regimes, martial law regimes, but then we have always come to the conclusion, by we I mean people in those particular countries, they've always come to the conclusion that there is no alternative to democracy. Like, when we talk about India, there are a lot of concerns about among people, among Indians, that a democracy is on the decline, that Hindutva nationalism has taken over. Today I had a good experience on Facebook. Somebody wrote something which was very encouraging, and he said about 13 lakh people visited the Ayodhya temple, the Ram temple, which was recently inaugurated on the 22nd of January, inaugurated by Prime Minister Modi. Then he pointed out that in contrast, 29 lakh people visited the Calcutta Book Fair, and he said these figures give us some hope.
True.
So this shows us that people believe in democracy, in liberal ideas. So liberal politics is what we expect in a democracy. Of course, a democracy sometimes throws up people we may not agree with. For example, Donald Trump in Italy, we have this far-right Prime Minister Giorgio Meloni, and in France, Marine Le Pen might succeed one day or might not. But these are. But then, all things considered, democracy is a system of politics which gives an opportunity to everybody. People decide. People may choose leaders who may not be good for the system, but then at the very next election, people also know that this person they elected 4 years ago or 5 years ago has to go. They have a choice. So it's the people who matter, and in governance or government is run according to the will of the people, and the will of the people is best reflected in a democratic situation.
Where the elections are held in a democratic way again.
Yeah. Even in authoritarian countries, they may not believe in democracy. See, but then they also know that some kind of election has to be there. In communist parties, they have the internal election. So that means at the back of their mind, they have this idea that elections should be there. They're not elections which we would be comfortable with, but the theme of election is always the back of the mind. So even in countries where dictators take part in election, they win by 99.99% of the votes. See, that is an outrage. But then the idea is that they feel the necessity of going to the people, whether it's a farcical election or whatever, but that ballots have to be arranged, that they should win, that they should have themselves recognized as civilian authors. Ayub Khan, Pakistan's Ayub Khan, he turned himself, he was a self-styled field marshal, tried to turn himself into politician in
democracy.
Basic democracy. So that was no democracy at all. But then we have all these kinds of systems.
Just being in India, but talking about a little bit different thing. Do you think that this shift from the total control of the Congress party in India has shifted to other parties? Do you think this is a goodbye to the dynastic policy and politics that existed in the subcontinent for a long time?
Yes, I think I would give Mr. Modi the benefit here. So one may not agree with his policies. One doesn't have to agree with his policy, but then what he has done in India is to sort of break up the dynastic system. Yeah. Now, we have in the Congress, we have the Nehru Gandhis, which have long dominated Indian politics. But then look at the way the Congress has declined. Similarly, in other Indian in the different Indian states, at the state level or provincial level, there are also family dynasties. They're not doing very well. Some of them are doing very well, but then most of people are realizing the dynasties do not matter. Because the problem with dynasties is, you may at one point you may have a supreme leader. You may have the father of the family who is taking over. Maybe he's succeeded by somebody else. But the third generation, see, if we talk of the Congress, Jawaharlal Nehru was there. Then Indira Gandhi was there. Then the decline started from Rajiv Gandhi. He lost the 1989 election. And later on, when the party went into the control of his widow, Sonia Gandhi, and her children, Sonia's son and daughter, Rahul and Priyanka, you observe the decline there. Yep. And similar is the case with Pakistan. The Pakistan People's Party, founded in November 1967 by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto after he had left the Ayub Khan government. Now, that was the dominant party in Pakistan, say in all these years. And Benazir Bhutto, after his father's execution, she took the party to a certain height. But now the party's dilemma is such that it has been reduced to just the state, the province of Sindh, a provincial party. Now, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari and his sister Asifa Zardari, they're both campaigning. They're trying to restore the national appeal of the party. But the point is, the main idea is that at some point, parties which are run on a dynastic basis, they lose their verve, they lose their steam, their energy, and which is bad for the parties, but good for the societies in which they exist, because other political parties cannot come up. We can go back to Imran Khan. Imran Khan, he brought into existence a party, the PTI, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, and that threatened to undermine everything. both the dynastic political parties as well as the civil military establishment in Pakistan, which is why again he is paying the price. So,
well, Mr. Nawaz Sharif is again, he has established his own family. His brother became Prime Minister. He was Prime Minister.
He's trying to become Prime Minister for the 4th time.
No.
His brother was Prime Minister in the last PDM government.
I think Prime Minister and Chief Minister a number of times.
Chief Minister of Punjab. And now his daughter, Maryam Nawaz. Again, it's a family affair. Yes. So when a party becomes a family affair, what happens when the family is no more on the scene? But the families do not like to leave the scene. They do not leave the scene, but people leave the party. You know, the electorate leaves the party. So what do you do about that?
How do you see the election in January election in Taiwan?
Yes, they've just elected a new president.
Yes.
I think the Chinese are very upset because the candidate they supported, who sort of wanted a kind of reconciliation and a peaceful coexistence between Taiwan and China, he has lost. So I think the Chinese government will not invade Taiwan, of course, although they regard it as a renegade province, as a runaway province. But I think the pressure will always be there. The economic pressure and the military pressure will be there because the Chinese government is always carrying out these military exercises, Air Force, Navy, and whatnot. And at the same time, we have the other power, Western powers, Quad, for instance, powers like Australia, the United States, and UK, and other powers will be there. So I think this situation, the Taiwan situation, will go on like this, and the Chinese will of course go into a whole lot of argument against the new president. But the new president should see he wants Taiwan to stay independent, but then he should also be very careful about his attitude. Unlike the new president of the Maldives, who has suddenly opted for a pro-China policy, and he's in trouble. I think he's facing impeachment. So statesmanship should be exercised in Taiwan, which statesmanship has not been exercised in the Maldives. No, because they want India out. They want India out, and by doing that, they've invited new problems for themselves.
Yeah, a couple of months ago, we were in Maldives, and there's a lot of anti-Indian feeling I saw, so I could feel it. But the point is that you can't be an enemy to the alligator if you live in water. Being so close to the in Indian Ocean, yes. You can't be
you're part of South Asia. So,
yep.
So
you can't have that attitude against India.
But what you can do in these circumstances is to develop a strategic foreign policy,
right.
Which I feel we in Bangladesh have been doing. Bangladesh foreign policy over the last 15 or even less than 10 years under the present government. That has been remarkable because we have maintained a balance. So nobody can accuse the Bangladesh government of being pro-Indian because we have good relations with India. At the same time, we have good and stable relations with China, with Russia, and other countries, the West also. Although we had some hiccups.
Well, there are some ups and downs always.
But that kind of statesmanship in diplomacy is a necessary thing.
Don't you think that Bangladesh's handling of the Rohingya situation has contributed to its image as a good governance and also a good foreign policy?
It indeed has done it because we have given space to these 1.1 million Rohingyas in our country, and the world has been very appreciative of the Bangladesh government's efforts to provide relief to these Rohingyas. But then the question comes, how much longer can we keep them in our country? So, but then we cannot afford to go into a confrontation, military confrontation, with Myanmar.
Not on that one.
No, not. So what we can do now? We have a new government, we have a new foreign minister, and I think it should be our responsibility, the responsibility of our diplomats in Segun Bagicha, Dhaka, Foreign Office. They should initiate a process of dialogue with the Myanmar government, and I think the Myanmar government is also under pressure now from all these different rebels operating in the country. So they will certainly respond. So negotiations, although we, in the last few years, we had hoped that pressure from the Indians, pressure from China, pressure from Russia on Myanmar would force them to take back the Rohingyas. That has not worked. So it now remains for us, for the new government in office in Dhaka, to reach out to Myanmar and, let's say, sit down and negotiate. It'll take a long time. We don't know when these people will go back to Myanmar, if they go at all. But then, between Dhaka and Naypyidaw, the Myanmar capital, I think negotiations, serious negotiations, should begin. There should be overtures made to the Burmese junta. We are not very friendly with junta. We are not very pro-junta because we have seen too many juntas in our history. But then, in the interest of foreign policy, we need to talk to them.
That's great. How do you see Bangladesh developing in next 5 years, the economy and the foreign relationship, and it coming up as one of the very prosperous and enterprising nations in that area particularly?
Yes, we will graduate from LDC status to middle income country status by the year 2026. That is understandable. I mean, that is appreciable. But over the next 5 years, I think the focus should be on a pro-poor policy, because there are still big pockets of poverty in our country. So that poverty area should be addressed. At the same time, the corruption that we have in the country, and the people laundering money and not being punished, people building homes, buying homes abroad, people who are politically powerful, politically powerfully linked to the powers that be, or other businessmen. We need to delve into that and find out what the government can do here. But then it's not something that will be done easily. What we need to ensure is that organizations, institutions, I mean, there should be institutions should be not only rebuilt, institutions should be strengthened. They should be allowed to operate professionally. For example, the Anti-Corruption Commission, ACC, should have more powers to haul in these corrupt people and grill them and sentence them. Because we have, in India, we have this ED, Enforcement Directorate. If they can, catch ministers, provincial state ministers and chief ministers and take them to prison on specific charges.
They have an organization called CIB or something.
The CBI.
CBI, yes.
So we need that kind of institution in our country, independent institution, independent of the political branch of the government. So those things need to be done. So unless, I mean, we can always talk. We have always talked about reducing corruption, alleviating poverty. But concrete action is necessary. I mean, word of mouth is not good enough anymore.
Yeah, the league table of Transparency International is not the criteria that we have gone down or gone up by a few notches now.
TIB, they have their report, but then again, in their recent report, they surveyed 50 constituencies, and what about the other constituencies? How did they reach these conclusions? And who did they go to all the constituencies? That also boggles the mind. Yeah.
We have been talking about politics in Bangladesh, politics in India, Pakistan, and almost all over the world. We have a problem in most Asian countries and third world countries about education.
Education, yes.
This is we have universities, and we have a glorious past. Our university was this, our university was that, and we had intellectuals as our teachers. But what is happening now, and why is this kind of sliding down the standards, the levels, and the students living in hostels, they're getting involved in crimes rather than educational activities. We don't produce magazines, we produce banners for political parties.
Banners, yes.
We used to produce magazines. We used to be, it was a
I
pleasure
remember,
to,
yes, we both remember those times.
it was an honor to be editor or be on the editorial
yes,
board of
yes.
those magazines. you
Yes,
see.
exactly.
And if we could write an article and it appeared in the newspaper, that Observer or Morning News or some other newspaper, we were so happy, you see.
Yeah.
But these days, those activities are gone completely.
No, because we don't have the kind of student bodies that used to be there. We have student organizations which are all affiliated to political parties. Now, they can be affiliated to political parties, but I think there should be a demarcation between the work of the national political parties and the work of the student organizations, Chhatra League, Chhatra Dal, and all others. They should be focusing on students' welfare. National politics is something that should be left to the political parties, and that should be made clear through legislation if necessary. Then again, of course, education has obviously declined in Bangladesh. Why else do we see so many students, so many young people who can afford to come travel abroad? They come to the UK, they go to Australia, they go to Canada, they go to the United States, and we're losing these people. And the difficulty is, most of these people, if 10 of these young people leave the country, you can be sure, for higher education, you can be sure that at the end, at least 8 of them will stay back. And we're losing. It's a brain drain, as they call it. So this is one problem.
But how to arrest this decline?
I think we have to depoliticize the education system, because every time we're changing the system. Recently, again, there was a National Curriculum and Textbook Board. Again, it's run into controversy with some of its text. The mistakes which were discovered. Last year also, about 400 mistakes were discovered. This year also some mistakes were discovered in there. And there's a writers panel that they have, the NCTB has. So every year, before these books are handed over to students, they're supposed to recheck, double check, and
audited completely.
And only the other day I was reading a report about these latest mistakes, errors which have crept into these textbooks, and some of these people who were involved with the editing or even authoring these chapters, different chapters, they said we did it in a rush, we didn't have time. That is no excuse, because you are giving these books out to these young people, and you give them the wrong information. So the question is, how, on what criteria do the authorities or does the NCTB choose these people, these editors or these writers? We don't know. That's right. And then again, we have, and finally, this in colleges and universities, we have politicized teachers. Every teacher.
That's what I was going to come to.
So you believe in politics, I believe in politics, but see, at the professional level, we leave our politics outside.
We need to have teachers that can teach us the subject.
Yes, but then when you have academics, when they publicly go around talking, supporting a particular political party, and then making sure that the opposition does not come back to.
We need to end this.
So that's it. Yes, that was a good discussion.
Thank you very much for watching this program today. We hope that you have enjoyed the show as much as we have in producing. And we hope to see you again soon with a different distinguished guest. And inshallah, take care.